Hello everyone, welcome back to Yvonne Winifred Yuchi, and today we are making this beautiful off-shoulder dress. So I'm using pattern paper first, and I've already marked some lines. From the top, guys, I went down to the off-shoulder line, which is 5.5 sewing allowance inclusive. Then I went for my bust line at the 10.5-inch mark, then at the 13.5-inch mark for the under bust, then the waistline at the 16-inch mark, and I added just 8 inches for the hip line, and the rest is the full length of this dress. Though this pattern paper is short, but when we are cutting we will consider that. So I'm going to mark on top here half of the shoulder measurement, which is 7.5 plus half an inch to mark 8 inches. Half an inch is the sewing allowance. So from there I go down by 1 inch to mark the shoulder slant, and from that shoulder slant I'm going down by 8 inches, which is the half of the armhole measurement. And guys, this chest line that is formed here is parallel to the shoulder line, so you have to make sure it is a straight line. Then I connect like that to form this chest line. So this is the chest line. So this is kind of the usual basic bodice, and at this point I'm marking 3 inches as the neckline width, and then I connect to the 1 inch mark of the shoulder slant, and that is it. So now moving on, I'm just going to mark half of the bust span or the nipple to nipple measurement. In this case, that half is 4 inches. Nipple to nipple measurement is 8 inches. Half of it is 4 inches. So since I might forget, I'm going to add the half an inch sewing allowance already. So I'm marking 4.5 inches on all these lines to form a line where we are going to shape our princess dart bustier from. So I'm connecting this line straight from the off shoulder line at the top at the 5.5 inch mark up to where the dress ends, or where the pattern paper ends for now. So guys, I'm coming at the waistline here, and I want to use a dart manipulation of 2 inches. So you can either mark 1 inch on either sides, but in this case I'm going to mark half an inch to this side that is close to the center front, and mark 1.5 inches on the other end, as you see. So coming at the under bust, whatever I've marked at the waistline, I'm just going to increase it by 1/4 inch on either side. So since I marked half an inch the other time, this time I'm marking 3/4 of an inch, having added 1/4 inch, and here I'm marking 1 inch and 3/4 of an inch. So now I'm going to measure what I have here at the under bust. I have about 2.5 inches. So I'm going to divide that 2.5 inches up here at the off shoulder line, and I'm going to mark 1 inch the other side that is close to the center front, and 1.5 inches this other side outside or near the side. So after, I'm going to get my ruler and my marker and start. Let me first use the pen, guys, just to be on a safer side. So I'm connecting my line in a curved manner from the bust line or the bust point to the off shoulder where we marked along the off shoulder line, as you see, like that. Those lines are a little bit curved, and also I'm marking from the bust to the under bust like this, and they are supposed to be curved lines, guys, just to form that bustier shape, and also from the under bust to the bust with a curve simply like this. So make sure that it is not too pointy at the bust point. So for the rest, these lines I'm just going to use straight lines and connect the points like this. So guys, after that I'm just going to connect straight to the hip line. I'm not minding the shape or the form. I'm just connecting to the hip line. As we sew it up, it will come up full circle. So this is what I do, like that. So now I'm going to use my marker to highlight all the necessary points that we will be using to form our dress. So this is what I am doing using this blue marker, and wherever there was a curve, again I'm using a curved side, and where it was straight, I'm using a straight side of this ruler. So this is it. So now I'm just going to measure these two lines. They have to be of the equal length, same length. So I'm measuring this line and also this line to make sure that they are of equal length. If they are not, guys, make sure you make them equal. So this one is a little bit longer than the other one by a 1/4 inch, so I'm going to add that a 1/4 inch this side like this, so that when I'm sewing, everything will just be equal. So also, guys, for the sweetheart neckline of this dress, I want it to be 7 inches, but you can even use 8. So I'm marking at 7 inches, and I'm going to connect like this with a simple curve for that sweetheart neckline. So let me do this. So that is it towards the center front. So that's what we have so far. So the center front will be on fold. So now, guys, moving on, I'm coming here at the off shoulder line, and I'm going to mark half of the brass strap. Like, I'm going to measure from one brass strap to another, since this is off shoulder, guys. So what I got about 11 inches. 11 divided by 2, since this is on fold, I'm marking 5.5. So 5.5 plus this dart intake of about 2.5 inches, I add it also here, and then the sewing allowance of that dart of 1 inch. So that is the measurement that I'm marking along this off shoulder line. If you tend to use your entire shoulder measurement, it will be too wide. You have to use a distance that is from one brass strap to the other divided by 2. So that is it. But guys, I think you remember that whenever we are cutting our front near the armhole, we move in by 1/2 inch, so you have to move in by that 1/2 inch. And also here where the chest line is, I'm going down by 1/2 inch, just since this is off shoulder, to give it some free space. I don't want to be so tight, so I went down by 1/2 inch to mark this new chest line, as you see. So now next, I'm just going to be dividing the bust measurement, dividing it by 4, again 9.5, plus the dart intake. Let me first mark that 9.5 down there. Then I add this dart intake. It's, I think, about 1/2 inch. So measure yours. And after that 1/2 inch, I add 1 inch for sewing allowance of that intake, and also the sewing allowance of this entire dress, which is 2 inches. So I'm going to connect with a curve from this off shoulder line to the chest line to mark the armhole, kind of the armhole. So this is what I will be using for the front. So that is it. Let me just even connect this point up here like this. So that is it so far. So I'm going to do the same, guys. I'm sorry, I realized my camera was not recording and I did all this, but let me explain. So after, I went to the waistline also and divided it by 4, and I added that intake waistline, not waistline, I'm sorry, it is waist measurement divided by 4 plus that intake along the waistline, then plus the 1 inch for sewing it up, that, and also the sewing allowance at the side of about 2 inches. So I did the same even along the hip line. Make sure, but at the hip line there is no that intake. I just added 1 inch for sewing up that, and also for the 2 inches for side seam allowance. And guys, I connected all those points like that, and now I can cut out my piece simply as you see. So guys, if you have any supplements or if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to comment in the comment section down below so that we can have a conversation. So this is it. So this forms our 2 front pieces, but don't hesitate to go on and see whether your markings are really correct, but I believe mine are correct, so that is it. So moving on, for the back, this is going to be the back piece. So I've already marked the lines as before, but guys, something I forgot is to add the zipper allowance, but I'll add it later. I didn't include it in this on this pattern paper, but I indicated that is supposed to be added, as you will be seeing later. So it is the same as we did up there. I marked the half of the shoulder measurement, went down by 1 inch, and from that 1 inch I went down by 8.5. Remember, we increased our armhole opening by half an inch since this is off shoulder, so that it will be free. So after all these lines, up here at the off shoulder, we are maintaining the 5.5 inches. I marked 4.5 inches, a bust span divided by 2 plus half an inch, all through, just as we did for the front. So at the waistline here, I marked half an inch on either sides of this line, and I'm just going to connect 1 inch above the bust line, or just at the bust line, as you see, straight like this. So for the back, it's just simple as the normal dart that we use, and from the waistline I'm going down to the hip line, from that half an inch on either side, simply like that, and then from the hip line going down, it is just a straight line like that. And even up here, I'm just maintaining straight line like that. So guys, remember up here along the off shoulder line of our 5.5 inches on top here, we marked the 5.5, the distance that we used from one bra strap to the other, divided by 2, 5.5. So I'm going to add 1 inch for sewing up this dart. That gives me 6.5, and I'm going to add another half inch. Remember, for the armhole of the back is a little bit larger than the front one, so we added that half inch. So for the sweetheart neckline, I used 7 inches for the front. Even at the back here, I'm maintaining the 7 inches at the center back. So at first I marked from the center back to this princess dart line, but guys, that was a mistake. I corrected it, as you're going to be seeing. So instead of going the line up to there, it was supposed to go like this, as you're seeing me correcting it. So it is supposed to be like this. From the center back of I used a neckline of 7 inches from the top, then I connected to the sides like that. So now continuing, I'm just simply dividing the bust measurement, dividing it by 4 plus 1 inch for the sewing up this dart intake, and also the 2 inches for the side seam allowance, and now I'm going to connect with the curve just as we did for the front. So this is what I do, like this. So if you have any questions, please go on and comment below, and also don't forget to like and subscribe. So even at the waistline, waist measurement divided by 4 plus that intake plus an allowance of sewing up that intake, guys, and also the 2 inches as the side seam allowance. You have to remember that. At first I forgot to add the 1 inch, but I corrected that, as you'll be seeing. So I do the same even along the hip line, hip measurement divided by 4 plus 1 inch that intake plus the 2 inches for side seam allowance, since I'll be using lining. So I'm connecting all my points. Don't bother about that line, that first line that I used. So, and after connecting all those points, this is what I have. So I have to indicate here that add zip allowance. So when you're sewing, when you're cutting on your fabric, you have to add it there. It can be 1 inch, 1.5 inches, 2 inches, according to the way you will be sewing all this up. So guys, after that I just cut out all the unnecessary things, and then we remain with what is necessary. So these are my 2 back pieces, the side piece, and this is the center back piece. So these are the pieces that we are going to be using to cut out at the fabric. So the next video will be about sewing this entire dress. So remember to come back and watch it also, and I'll be seeing you there.